Hello everyone, I'm Karen Dudek-Brannan from Dr. Karen's Speech and Language. Thank you for joining my newsletter. I just wanted to take the time to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about some of the resources on my site and what you can expect now that you've joined. So currently I am a speech language pathologist in the school systems and have been since 2004. I also see some private clients and teach college courses in the area of language development and disorders. So over the next couple months you can expect to get emails from me every 1 to 2 weeks sharing articles and resources you can use to help you in your practice. The content will focus on treatment for school-age language disorders with an emphasis on metalinguistic awareness and metacognition. So right now, I'd like to talk about the rating scale some of you got for joining my mailing list, which is called Meta Definitions for Nouns Data Collection Rating Scale. And you can see the cover sheet in the bottom right corner there. The purpose of this evaluation tool is to give you a way to measure your students' progress with vocabulary skills, primarily with an emphasis on Tier 2 vocabulary or anything that they need to functionally know in their environment. So in the school systems, you might consider academic vocabulary. So we know that with our standard formal evaluation tools, they give us standard scores but don't necessarily show growth with specific words over time. So this is a method that you can use to do that. Also, we know that formal assessments don't measure progress with specific curricular vocabulary. So this is a way that we can effectively do that. Last, we know that simply being able to identify a picture or just name a word doesn't really give us in-depth information about word knowledge. So we want to know a little bit more about how that student is able to use a word. So this tool can help you do that. These are some references that have been especially helpful to me. The top one in particular influenced the development of this tool because Dale created a framework to explain 4 levels of knowing a word, and I've basically broken that down into 5 levels for the development of the meta definitions rating scale. So here's an example. Here's the data collection form, and let's say that we are going to test knowledge of the word earth. So in that case, we would put the word in that target word column there in the first row, and then we would collect our response from the student, and then we would put a check mark under the appropriate rating. And then we would do the same thing for the subsequent words. And to get our response, we would use a probing phrase, which would mean that we're just asking a student a question such as, what does earth mean? Or what is earth? So let's say you ask your student, what is earth? And they give you the deer in headlights look, and you can tell that they have no idea what you're talking about. So maybe they can't even repeat the word back to you. So in this case, you'd give them a 1 and move on. It's relevant to note whether they can say the word back to you, because part of our understanding of words includes our phonological knowledge of the word, so our ability to actually recall the sounds that make up the word. So you'll notice that when you have no clue what a word means, you'll have a hard time repeating it back to someone else. So if a student struggles with this, they're probably a 1 on this rating scale. So let's say your student can repeat the word back to you, and you know this because they say it when they're trying to explain it. But maybe they say something vague or incorrect, such as earth means the earth, or it's earth. You'll notice that kids with poor metalinguistic awareness will just repeat the word they're trying to define rather than explaining it with other words, or they'll use the word but not really tell you any relevant descriptive information about it. So at this point, you know that they're higher than a 1. They're obviously not a 4 or 5, so we would ask probing questions to see if they would be a 2 or a 3. So you could ask a question such as, is Earth an animal, a food, or a planet? And you could do this in oral or written form. So if they answer correctly, you give them a 3. If they are unable to identify the correct answer, you give them a 2. So you see that we are giving them the opportunity to explain it before we present the multiple choices, But when we realize they aren't able to do it, we probe further to see if they have some receptive knowledge. But it's very important to make sure that you aren't probing too soon, because you do want to see if they can actually describe the word first. Here's another scenario. Let's say the student gives you appropriate semantic information and can use the word correctly, and they're using it in a sentence appropriately, but maybe they can't give you an explicit definition. So here are some examples for the word Earth that show what I mean. Maybe they say it's in outer space, it's near Mars, there's people there, we live on Earth. So all of these things are true and provide information about location, associated items, function, or other semantic features, but notice that none of them really say what the Earth is. In order to correctly define a noun, we need to give categorical information, and people who have the metalinguistic knowledge to know how to explain what a noun is use this correct syntactic structure and give this information. So that's why we make this distinction and give these types of responses a 4 and not a 5. For our last scenario, I'll talk about an explicit definition with categorical information that uses the Aristotelian definition format, which is an X is a Y or an X is a Y that's Z. So this would be anything that follows this syntactic structure and also gives categorical information that explains exactly what a word is. So here are some examples for the word Earth. They might say an Earth is a kind of planet, or it's a planet where we live. The Earth is a planet in the solar system. So you see here that these responses clearly explain what the word is. They reference the category, and they use the appropriate syntactic structure that allows the listener to understand exactly what the word means. Now, it's pretty normal for our students with language delays to be pretty clueless about this. So, of course, knowing where they are gives us a starting point. So obviously this rating scale has some level of subjectivity to it, but using your professional judgment, it's something you can use to measure your students' progress and quantify their knowledge of specific curricular nouns. And some of the resources I'll be publishing in the future will address some other types of speech like adjectives or verbs. But I hope this at least gives you a starting point. So here are some other free resources you can get on my site in the therapy tools section. One of them is called Meta Definitions Template, and this is a tool that will help you to teach that Aristotelian definition format that I just talked about. And these flashcards are some specific words that you can use while you are using that template. So I hope that this was helpful to you. Please respond to this email and let me know if you have any suggestions for future resources or how I can make the current resources more helpful to you. You can visit me at drkarenspeech.com. And as always, please feel free to share these resources with your friends. Thank you.